thank you all for spending a Friday or Saturday with us in our Let's Talk Avelo webinar series. We're excited to have so many people joining us, hopefully with good questions. We certainly have a fantastic panel of guest speakers, including our CEO and the inventor of Avelo, Aviad Cahana. We have 4 guest speakers from around the globe. Lucia is calling in from Australia. Ross is calling in from Florida. Todd apparently is also in Florida right now, but he is sort of our traveling diver. And I believe will talk to us maybe about going to Bonaire and Catalina. And Peach is calling from Catalina right now. So it's exciting to have people from all over tuning in with us tonight. We will wrap up afterward with Ben, who has news about what's next to come. Ben is our travel director, so he will talk about places we can find the Avelo system. So thank you all for this first segment of Let's Talk Avelo. This is one of a 4-piece series throughout the year, so you can come back in for different topics throughout the year. In the next one, we will hear directly from our Avelo dive centers, and you can see from the owners and from the general managers and divers there, what it's like to dive Avelo at those dive centers and how you might even become involved as an Avelo instructor. Without further ado, I would like to invite Aviad to chat Avelo. What's going on?
Hello, everybody. We're thrilled to see all of you joining us for something that not that long ago was something that was more private to us, which is the Avelo experience and diving it. So it's great to see it all over the world. And I want to thank all of the people that are involved. We have a lot of dive centers now. Jennifer can show you the map of where Avelo is in the world, and we're expanding quickly here. We had Bonaire and Catalina and Sydney who came up online last year. And then this year already, we're in Florida with the Rainbow Reef and a few more. We're in Oahu. Spain is about to open up, and we have a Red Sea. So quickly here, we're starting to expand, and you'll see us in more and more locations throughout 2024 and even more so in 2025. And then we have some exciting news coming in this year about us starting to get into retail that will show up more in June, July. Those news will be coming in. And of course, the tour that Ben's going to talk about. So with that, I'll let you guys talk.
Thank you, Aviad. I would like to first have a little chat with with Lucia in Australia, and
Hello.
Talk about your experience in diving Avelo. Could you introduce yourself and tell me about your dive experience?
Yeah, so my name is Lucia. I am originally from Spain. I've been in Australia for a bit longer than a year now, and I'm a PADI instructor. And yeah, I've been diving since 2011. Did my instructor course in Spain, in Tenerife, in the Canary Islands. And yeah, I've been just diving around the Sydney area since I arrived in Australia. And then I found out through Abyss about this Avelo system. I was like, oh, what is that? So I just jumped in the first original webinar, and it just sounded amazing. I was like, this is exactly what the diving world needs. So I signed up for the first course that they run here in December, and I absolutely loved it. It was just, yeah, so good.
How was it different from diving a standard scuba system?
So the first thing that just comes to mind is like it's really light. So it's just very easy to carry. And then it was really strange the fact that it doesn't have a BCD. Like you're always used to, just reaching your left hand and it's like, oh, this doesn't work like that. So with all the briefing, the introduction, it just kind of made sense. It doesn't really make sense until you try it in the water. But it was just an amazing experience. It feels a lot more natural. You're free. I love the fact that all the air that you have is for you to breathe. there's no, you know what I mean? You don't waste air just like playing with your buoyancy. And once you get your buoyancy right, once you're underwater, then it's just easy, it's seamless. And it feels so much safer. Like there's nothing that at any point is going to just make you shoot up to the surface. It's just, yeah, it just feels really, really comfortable, really easy, and really safe. I loved it. You know, you can follow fish if you want to take a picture, and you don't have to be playing with your BCD just for changing half a meter in depth, or you know, you can just turn around and you don't have to, you know, adjust your buoyancy constantly. It's just a very, very easy, seamless experience. And it just felt really safe and really easy and light. That's just, I mean, I did manage to dive on a dry suit with no weights. I did have to use the pump a few times, but that just to me was unthinkable. So yeah, it's been an amazing experience. I really liked it, and since I did the course, I haven't gone back to diving with the standard scuba system. So I think that says a lot.
Do you dive that famous site called the Steps?
Yes, yes,
I
the
know
weedy
that.
sea dragons are there, and it's just an amazing sight. And yeah, it can get, you know, quite tricky with all the, you know, standard gear and like all your weights and everything, especially like now we're coming into winter, the water gets a bit colder. So, you know, I do get cold, so I like to dive on a dry suit. And if I have to endure that dive on a dry suit with six around 6 kilos of lead that I would usually take, I just might give it a miss. You know what I mean? Like that, it's too much, especially coming back up. But yeah, with the Avelo system, just I'll do it every day. It's great.
I love your enthusiasm.
Thank you. I really
It
liked
sounds
it. It
like
was great.
you really like diving.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. It's like my favorite thing to do in the world. When I'm underwater, it's just like my happy place. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's brilliant. And honestly, like this is something like everybody that knows me knows about this system. Like I can't shut up about it. I just want everybody to try it. And I can't wait for it to be in more dive centers. So when I go, you know, traveling to other places, I can, you know, give it a go. It's great.
Awesome. Well, I hope you make it to some of the other destinations, get to see some of our other Avelo dive centers.
Yes, me too. They're definitely on my list.
Maybe even Spain.
Yes, I know, right? Oh my God, that's so exciting.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing some of that story.
My pleasure.
I'm sure also some of our other speakers will have some questions, and some of our guests will have some questions for you too. Lucia has a little bit of a
Yes.
short time with us. So if you have
Yes.
something specific for Lucia, feel free to go ahead and chat that in the chatty chat, and I'll make sure that we circle that up and get your question answered. I'd love to hear a little bit about Ross's background in diving.
Okay, so my background in diving, I started diving in the 1900s, ooh, and actually did most of my diving really cold. Minnesota, Vancouver, Montreal. My teaching career, I started in Montreal of all places, and there's actually a lot of enthusiastic divers in Montreal. And then I migrated and made my way down to Utila as a course director, Florida as a course director, worked at PADI headquarters for a while and as an examiner and a training consultant, and made my way back here, mainly because I like to teach. I like to be in front of people, and I like to show people new things, which is really cool, especially now that there's a new thing to really show.
How did you learn about Avelo?
They hit me over the head. Sorry. Uh, the first place I saw it was DEMA, and everyone was like, "Dude, you got to go see this. You got to go see this." And of course, like every other old fart course director, I'm like, "Yeah, it's a niche. It's never gonna work. Whatever." And so I passed by a couple times, and then the second year I did the same thing, and I didn't really pay too much attention until I started to pay attention. And then I watched one of the sessions that was offered, and went, this has fins. Doesn't have legs, but it has fins. It's got it. This is something that could really be cool. And then I went out to Maui and dived it, and not to sound like a Monkees song, but and I'm a believer. It was amazing. It was just an amazing, because of course, and I think Aviad probably did this on purpose, where he made me walk through this like really rocky area at a dive site in like 3 or 4 feet of water. And it normally, in like 70 pounds of gear, I would be hating life and I would be turning his air off. But meanwhile, I was like, oh, this is really quite simple because it's light. That was just getting into the water. And then underwater, it was free diving, but I could breathe.
So you're unique in that you kind of went from 0 to hero a bit, from standard scuba into RAD, and then you recently, just last week, became an Avelo instructor. Are you the
I
first
have the
Avelo?
T-shirt to prove it. Yes, I'm very proud. I'm very happy. Yes, and I will say that underwater mountains have been moved to help fortify this, because yeah, basically, the owner of the dive shop, DJ, and I went to Maui. We were there in February, and it was just like a moment of, yeah, you know what, this could really work. And to be perfectly honest, this this is going to be an industry game changer, quite literally. So it just made sense. So yes, they helped make sure, obviously we had all the certifications in place, we had all the numbers in place. They put us through excruciating courses to make sure that we were well trained. But it really is a remarkable program that they put together, Aviad and Jay, and I'm sure others have been involved. As a matter of fact, I was involved with the technician side of things as well, which is really, and I will say, pun intended, radical, because it's almost so simple it's silly, because yeah, it's a tank inside a tank, and that's it. And then there's a pump, and then there's a complete different way of diving that you don't even have to think about it. You just dive. You just swim, really, you know?
And I can attest to the Hawaiian landscape on Maui. Going in the rocky entrance was easier than the half-mile walk through sand. I think sand is mean.
Yes, and
You-
and well,
yeah,
here all of our dives are done off of boats. And the hardest part of any dive is getting back on the boat. And I put my foot on the bottom of the rung, stepped up, and nearly jumped on the deck of the boat because I was ready for all the weight, and it just wasn't there. It was silly. I was giddy. I was like a little schoolgirl, which
awesome.
is kind of odd for a big guy.
So you've been diving in Maui and in Florida on the system. And we have with us Todd, who is kind of our traveling Avelo RAD diver. Todd, could you talk to us about your dive history?
So I was certified out in California in, I think, 92 when I was like 20, 1920. I've been diving for a long time. Finally took the jump to become an instructor. So now I'm a PADI master instructor. I lived in California for a long time, taught out there. So I did a lot of shore diving up and downstairs across the sand out in Catalina, where the Avelo system is. Wasn't there at the time. And I can tell you, I used to wear a steel tank, 130 cubic feet, probably 18 pounds of lead, with my dry suit or my 7/8 mil. Even in Texas, I would wear steels, even in fresh water, just a lot of weight. Just because I was a bigger guy. Even after losing weight, I was still using quite a bit of weight, steel tanks. So as I progressed through, getting better at my buoyancy as an instructor, I was shedding some weight. But when I went out to DEMA, I'd asked the shop owner that I work with, I would really like to see somebody come up with something where we can just shed all this weight. He goes, have you seen Avelo? I'm like, what are you talking about? So this year last year, went to DEMA, saw this booth, went back 3 or 4 times just to ask 1,000 questions because I'm like, there's no way it can be this easy. And then I said, I'll see you in December. And they didn't believe me. And sure enough, I showed up in December, got certified, and it was basic. I mean, it's literally they sit you in a class, you calculate how much weight you might need. And I was stunned. I'm like, 12 pounds, that's too much. No. And by the time I was down to 8 pounds of lead with a 7 mil wetsuit in one of their tanks, no steel tank, which I can tell you, I know I wear 18 pounds in a steel 130 in California most of the time. Not anymore. I would tell you I'm 8 pounds with a 7mm with their tank. And literally I stepped in the water after walking all across the Catalina casino. Usually you're out right by the steps. Literally walked all the way from the shop, down the stairs, in the water, hit a button, dropped down, and that was it. I never touched that button again. I more started bleeding some of the water out because I was a little heavy, because I started off with 12 pounds, and I went down to 60 feet, back up to 25 feet, back down to 60 feet, never touched anything, just all breath control. And that's how diving should be. I mean, we try to teach our students, hey, this is for fine corrections. Now really use your lungs, and it just hits home at that point. Your lungs do all the work, up and down. And it was basic. I literally took my gear off on my second dive, put it back on, completely neutral, like most instructors will teach you to do neutral, but this was just easy. I just sat in the water column, and it was just nice. I can tell you, I have students that are 300 pounds that live across the street. When I told him about this, he's like, how do I get this? How do I get this? Because I am tired of trying, like Ross said, pull myself up off the boat with 300 pounds of all this crap on me. See, Ross, I didn't say that word.
I did
Well
give
done.
them a little bit of guidance. I told them we're family friendly at Avelo,
So,
which will be important when we talk to Peach, and she'll talk to us a little bit about some of her goals for Avelo. But before I move on to Peach, Todd,
Yeah.
have you been diving in Florida on the system yet?
no, unfortunately, the tour's coming through, and it's coming. My shop, I begged them, go check this out. They've actually signed up for July. I will actually be on a cruise, and I'll be hitting Bonaire and diving the system. And then next week I'll be out in Catalina and diving it again. I'm trying to get my 10 because I'm gonna try to shoot for that instructor t-shirt. It looks cool.
I know a place in Florida if you want to go dive it.
I know, Rainbow Reef. I would really like to try it on Spiegel Grove.
We will be doing an adventure dive on Spiegel Grove when we come through for the Avelo Tour.
Yeah, I think I'll be on vacation.
Have you been back on standards since you were on the Avelo system?
Oh, yes, I have to. I mean, I teach it, so I have to be on the standard. It's just night and day. You know, everybody knows the weight is used because of all the bulk we wear. Lose that BCD right off the bat. Different tank. It's like a ballast system. You're pumping water in to give you the weight like a sub. You pump it out, you get back to the surface. It's easy.
Awesome. I appreciate your insights.
Sure. Highly recommended.
Paige, could you talk to us a little bit about your unique background and where you are hoping to take the Avelo system? She's trying to get unmuted right now. She's been so nicely muted the whole time.
Okay.
There she is.
Cool. Yeah. Hey, my name is Ashley Peach Bush. I work at Catalina Sea Camp. What was your question, Jennifer? I'm sorry.
You have big plans for the system.
Oh,
so you fell in love with the system, and now you have ideas about how you want to use it.
Yeah. So yeah, I learned about the system on my way to DEMA. I was on a flight with the folks from Catalina Diver Supply, and they're like, "What? You haven't heard about this yet?" And they told me a little bit about it. And then I went to the presentation at DEMA, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this sounds incredible." So I'm an instructor, and we have a camp where we scuba dive with kids. And I think the applications for youth with this system are huge, right? Because kids carrying around 70 pounds is so hard. So yeah, we're hoping to bring Avelo to our campers this summer, which I'm really excited about, kind of working with Catalina Diver Supply. And I also think we do a lot of scientific diving here as well. And I think the applications for scientific diving are really huge, right? When you're so task loaded, collecting data, and measuring things and taking photos and videos underwater, not having to think about adjusting your buoyancy at all during that time is huge.
Time is precious underwater. I'm an underwater photographer, filmmaker, and it's just the one thing we can't get enough of. You know, we don't live down there, unfortunately, and it does become kind of an addiction problem to get back down there. So in teaching the students in Catalina, you share a similar site as the one I mentioned, the steps with Lucia out in Sydney. It's like 2 flights of stairs to get down to the water there at low tide. And that's entertaining, especially if you're smaller or younger or older. We have heard from Dan Orr a lot about the benefits of older divers enjoying the system. So did you learn how to dive a Velo at Catalina?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. With Catalina Diver Supply. And yeah, it's just like everybody else has said, just so amazing, right? You're carrying so much less weight. So getting in and out at the steps is huge. And then going underwater with it, I don't know if anybody else has these dreams, but I have dreams where I'm just underwater and it's like so effortless. And I don't even think I breathe in these dreams, but like a Velo feels like that. You're just underwater and you're diving and focusing on diving and very free. And I love it. I think it's really awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for your insight too. Are you a dry suit diver?
No, I dive at 5 mil usually with a hooded vest.
Wow.
So yeah, with a 5 mil and a hooded vest, I don't wear any weight at all, which is pretty awesome. Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
We've touched a little bit on the Avelo Tour. So some of y'all might be wondering what that is. I've brought our travel director, Ben Larson, on to introduce the concept of the Avelo Tour, help you figure out ways to dive it. And then I would love to open some more conversation and dialogue with everybody on the call and also with our guest speakers. So Ben, could you tell us about what's happening with the Avelo Tour? You're broken up. Yeah, you're breaking up.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. This summer, we are going to be going to Florida. I am going to be taking a van, driving it from Colorado, the hub of all things scuba, and taking it down to the Florida Keys where we'll start. And then June, July, and August, we'll be working with different dive shops in different locations to get people in the water, introduce it to both the dive shops as well as divers, and hopefully get a lot of other places for you guys to get in the water and dive.
So as Ben mentioned, we've got a number of destinations. In Florida, we're going through the whole state. You'll be able to dive in the Keys, South Florida, Central Florida, North Florida, and you can learn more about those destinations on diveavelo.com and check out the Avelo Tour page to see who's participating in that. And we don't want to forget Rainbow Reef is down there as an Avelo Dive Center, and they will be offering Avelo Instructor courses. So our coming to the state of Florida will help any interested instructors also have the opportunity to get their RAD specialty certification and some of their qualifying dives, so they can then be ready to take that Avelo Instructor course for our Avelo Pro. I hope everyone's excited about us coming to Florida. I know we are. I've been diving throughout the whole state and can't speak more highly of everything from reefs to wrecks. And I think we're even diving a lake in Florida, Ben, if that serves my memory correct. So we're hitting up all kinds. Yeah.
That is true.
All kinds of different water. So it'll be a good opportunity to bring out the cameras, try something new. And we'll have some adventure dives in there. We're planning dives on the Vandenberg, on the Spiegel Grove, and we've talked about the Oriskany. So there are some exciting things coming up in the wreck world and maybe even some of our underwater wildlife. I know I'm looking forward to getting out there and shooting some of the pretty destination there. So people from all over the country are welcome to come down to Florida when we're doing our Avelo Tour. The dates will be posted shortly, but the months are listed and the regions that we're working in. And you can contact each dive shop directly if you want to book with them. So we have an exciting lineup. It's so nice to see people with different experiences. I saw in our messaging, Peter wanted to remind me that the steps is far more strenuous than Catalina. I think it just depends. It's a bit colder at Catalina, but in the heat, I was dying in Australia, going down those many flights of irregular natural steps and man-made steps. So we'll give props to everybody on that one. We're not picking any favorites. We do also have another visiting dive center with us. Oahu Travel Divers is on the call. Ed McNeil is teaching out of Oahu. And we want to thank Rachel and Peter again from Abyss Scuba Diving for jumping on the call. Ross, as he mentioned, works with Rainbow Reef Dive Center. I think that's our newest dive center. Planeta Azul is coming on board with us in Spain, and New Mexico Dive Center just came online. They will be participating in the tour as well and have some new dates coming out. I think they're visiting in June. So we've talked about Catalina Diver Supply quite a bit on this call. Do any of you guys as RAD divers, have you all met before? Is this the first time that you've met?
First for me.
First time for you guys. Is there anything you guys want to ask each other?
Oh, I've been asking.
Oh, behind the scenes, you're typing away.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been asking about the dry suit, you know, some tips on that. Hook up with Ross, hopefully go diving at Beagle Grove, since I'll be down there hopefully in May.
And the Dwayne and the bib.
I haven't done those. I've only done Spiegel.
And the eagle. Don't leave out the eagle.
Yeah. Then of course, you know, you guys are going to dive Lake Denton, I think, out in Florida on the tour. So,
Awesome.
then maybe I'll dive with Peach next weekend. Sound good?
Have you guys met before? Have you met Todd?
No.
No, and you've both.
No, but I'll be in Catalina 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Very cool. So making connections, finding new dive buddies. We so love our Avelo dive community. Lucia's got to run. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime. And yeah, hopefully meet all the fellow Avelo divers soon. I'm looking forward to Aviad and Jay and Co coming back down to Australia so I can do my pro course. That would be great. But yeah, have a great time. And I just left my email there in case anybody wants to ask me anything. But yeah, Todd, I hope what I said about the dry suit helps. Have a great time. Enjoy. Let us know how it goes.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, Lucia.
Thanks. Bye.
Does anyone else have any questions or want to ask something of our speakers? We are silent on the speaker.
I'll make a comment in support of Peter. So Ross, if you think when I took you to dive on Maui and you think it was a hike, so Peter and Rachel, who came all the way from Australia to do the same thing, we went to the same site, and it's actually the site where the system was invented. And it's a bit of a hike. And I was like preparing them that it's going to be quite a hike, and they laughed at me because then they showed me what Australia diving is like. And those flight of steps that they have, these guys are carrying weight far more than what we think is hard. So yes, it's hard to compare Australia to anywhere else that we've been. These guys are a bit
well, that's
dedicated. Dedicated is the right word.
That's because Australia has all the deadly snakes and Hawaii doesn't.
That is part of it. So yes, yeah, this is especially true. The lightweight and all that is especially true for Australia. But yeah, we're happy to take questions.
I've got a question. I don't know if I can just jump in.
Jump.
Should I raise my hand or something?
Please jump in.
Go for it.
Oh, I'm just wondering about, I heard you said there's a tank inside of a tank and you pump water in to get your buoyancy. Can you tell me a little bit more about the technicality of that? How does it work?
Which one of you guys want to take that? Ross is whatever. So honestly, the best way to answer that question is that we have a webinar online with Danor that really goes deeper and shows the diagrams and all that. But in a nutshell, there's a bladder inside of a tank. Just imagine a scuba tank that has a bladder inside of it that takes the entire inner volume of the tank. That's what Ross meant by tank inside the tank. The outer shell, in our case, it's a carbon fiber shell and it's lightweight. Its whole function there is to keep the bladder in one position when you get it into the water and you float because that tank is lightweight and it displaces a lot of water, and you're lightweight. So you're going in, you're floating. When you're ready to dive, you pump water. The water will be pumped from the bottom of the tank, and it goes in between that collapsible tank, if you will, or the bladder that's inside the tank, and it resides between the bladder and the walls of the tank. In effect, what it does is the water just compresses the inner bladder. So the inner tank, when Ross was saying it's a tank inside a tank, the inner tank is getting smaller. So it's the opposite of standard scuba in the sense that in standard scuba, you add more and more gear. You have a tank, you have to take weight because you're going to consume the gas. So then because you have to start the dive heavy, you have to take an inflatable on you that we call a BCD. And so it's an addition. It's a game of addition. You keep adding more and more gear. Avelo goes the other way. The tank inside and tank concept allow you to remove buoyancy from the system. When you pump water into the tank, you essentially remove buoyancy from the system. You go the other way. And that's why it changes the whole thinking about diving. So that's the concept of a tank inside a tank.
So the water is around on the outside of the bladder, and it just compresses the air.
Yes, and you don't need a lot of it. It makes a big difference. It makes a big enough difference that you can dive with it, and you don't imagine a ton of water in the tank. It's not that much, but it does make a big difference.
I'm having trouble breathing just thinking about it, but I'm sure you get past that. Thank you very much. But have a look at the webinar.
But I was told that I'm not allowed to talk, so I'm gonna mute myself now, and
I'll start asking questions.
It's open for you, Aviad, now.
And it was actually mentioned earlier that and I think it was Lucia that said until she actually wore it and dived it, it didn't make sense. And I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I did all the e-learning. I talked to people, I did it, and I had 1,000 questions. And I almost want to say to people that have questions, just put it on your back and go underwater. Because when you see it, when you feel it, when you go, oh, it just makes sense. Because we are so ingrained in the way that we dive now with a BC that what do you mean you don't have, what do you mean you don't do this? Well, why don't you do that? Well, because you don't even have that, and you don't need that. One of my course directors afterwards, like, it was just like, when I've got my normal, neutral buoyancy, and then there was nothing. It was nothing to it. I said, yes, but what did you have to do to get that neutral buoyancy? Well, I just kind of properly weighted myself the first time, and then I was neutrally buoyant. And I said, yes. And how many times did you had to fix that when you went up and down in a 30-foot column? Well, I guess I didn't really have to change anything at all. No, you just breathed, right? Imagine that was like Aquaman in the movie, swimming up and just hovering and then swimming away. So it completely changes the way that you think about diving. I mean, I call it so you think you know how to dive, because you're relearning a new system that is so much more easily picked up than the system that we have now. Because right now we got to worry about a rapid descent, we got to worry about a rapid ascent. All the training that we do is so we don't pop, so we don't drop, so we don't do this. But now we've got a system that takes that problem away. So just clearing my ears, I never had, and I've been clearing my ears for years, and I never even thought about it, but because it allows me to just kind of float down, and I do a wiggle and I'm good. Imagine that with your students that are new just to clearing their ears. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah, and if you have good buoyancy to start with, this just takes it to a whole nother level. You'll adapt so quick.
Well, and we've also trained divers who are open water certified, and the very next dive, they take Avelo following their open water certification, and they look like dive masters with their buoyancy in the water. So I know Abyss has a lot of experience with some new open water divers trying the Avelo system. I don't know if Peter wants to talk to that at all, but he's welcome to chime in if anyone's interested in hearing what it's like for somebody who's brand new to dive the Avelo system. Put him on the spot. Are there any other questions?
Hello.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. I love to dive, and I'm very excited about this technology. My issue is I have both of my shoulders are totally replaced, and I cannot carry weight. I dive a lot, but I enter the water either by a forward roll off a boat or a harbor, or I don and doff on the surface. I see that the tanks are fairly low slung, and I'm wondering, can you forward roll off a boat with the tank hanging so low off your back?
We did it on Maui without a problem. It's case specific, and once you go into a dive shop, this can only be answered. Was it done before? Yes, without a problem, just like a standard scuba tank. So there's no restriction on that, but we'll need to see you in one of the dive shops and answer that there.
Okay, gotcha. Second question. My wife has quite a few dives under her belt, but her ears are very sensitive. She's the last one to get to the bottom. She has to go down very slowly in an upright position. From what I've seen in the on the website, the descent is head first at about a 45-degree angle. I don't know that she can do that and clear her ears. Is it possible to descend in a vertical head-up position?
Yeah, you can descend just like you descend in standard scuba. In fact, the nice thing about this is that you're always neutral. You know how with the standard BC, you dump the air from the BC and there's a free fall, which in many cases causes that ear issue. With Avelo, you're neutral. So you don't have to swim down with 45 degrees. You can just exhale, drop a few feet, take a breath, exhale, drop a few feet, and you equalize in between those exhalations. You can drop feet down without a problem. You don't have to swim down, but you're neutral. So there's no way for you to be heavy or too heavy with the system. And I'll stop here and I'll let the dive shop and the people that taught it talk about it more, because some of you have more experience with that. I taught a lot on Maui, and I've seen it, but I'd like comments from the field more than just me.
Very good, thank you. One last question regarding the Shearwater Turn wrist computer and the release of the Avelo mode. I'm going to Bonaire in July. Do you think that Shearwater is going to have the Avelo mode available for a firmware update?
That's the goal. We're working with several, we're working with ScubaPro, and we're working with Shearwater. Yes, those announcements will be made by, in this case, Bonaire, if you go there. The Avelo mode is something that is right now, it's a bit more behind the scenes. It's about to be announced. Anybody that went through the class got to see it. I'm excited for you to be able to see it, because it's something that really connect the dots after the dive. For those of you who don't know what the Avelo mode is, Simon, I'm going back to your question about the tank inside the tank. So a tank inside the tank also allows us to do things that were not available in the scuba industry before. One of these is the Avelo mode. What it is, we can collect data that tells you what your neutral buoyancy is relative to your absolute zero throughout the dive. It was tried before with BCDs. The problem with the BCD is that it's an air pocket, and it's very difficult to know exactly how much air you have in the tank and what the density of that air is, and temperature dependent. You need a supercomputer underwater to do something like that. With us, because you simply pump water into the tank, we're tracking two things. One is your air consumption rate throughout the dive. That's easy. All air integrated dive computers do that. We develop an algorithm that also tells us how much water is in the tank. So we know exactly what your buoyancy is, or what are the forces that work on you or affect you underwater. What we do after dives is that we show divers the data that show them how close to neutral buoyancy. And I think somebody mentioned that, I think Todd or Ross actually mentioned, Ross, I think you mentioned that when you were saying, so you think you know how to dive. This is the first time that you see how close you are by the gram to how close you are to neutral buoyancy. And it also shows you your workload. And it shows how close you are to, like, what your workload is relative to your buoyancy status. This is the Avelo mode. It has two components to it. Part of it is shown underwater, that you can actually track this data and see it in live. That's the part that we're hoping that will be there by then. The other part is after the dive, that you can see where you were, and we compared it to your tidal volume. So what you can do with your lungs comfortably while breathing normally relative to your buoyancy status is what we're showing you after the dive. And it makes a big difference for divers at all levels, just to see it after the dive. So that's the Avelo mode, for those of you that don't know what it is. And again, I'll open this up. I mean, all of you have seen it. Ed, Peter, Ross, any one of you that have seen the Avelo mode, if you want to comment on that, go for it.
I have a question, actually, Aviad. Brian mentioned Turn with Shearwater. Are you looking to do other models like Nerd, Perdix, etc.?
The ideal and the goal is that it will be on the entire line for all of the whatever, and all sites want to do that, but you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
And the algorithm itself first needs to work on one of the models. It's not a big lift to then transfer it to others, but again, I can't at this point. We're still in the end part of the development, I would say.
Yeah. But I did see it on the G2 Scuba Pro in Catalina, and it was very informative. You absolutely see that neutral point.
So Ed McNeil here from Oahu Travel Divers. I absolutely love the Avelo mode. It's in beta testing on the Terek right now, and that'll be the first model I'm sure it will be available on. The Turn TX, and I'm a Shearwater dealer, Turn TX is an amazing computer for Avelo. It's great price point. It's light, it's small. I love it. I dive it myself. Being able to see the percentage of gas you have available to yourself and for your divers is magic. You know, it is just such a beautiful thing to be able to say to your divers on Avelo, I want you on the line at 22%. Or whatever your target is, instead of saying 800 psi in the line. You can't tell when you're on Avelo what your actual percentage your psi is. So the Avelo mode is a complete game changer for that in terms of leading divers on Avelo. So I'm really looking forward to that. And at Oahu Travel Divers, we put Shearwater computers in all our divers' wrists, so they can, on deep dives particularly. So I'm looking forward to having everybody with a Turn TX and transmitter on Avelo.
We have a question. Oh,
Jeffrey, let me just touch on something here. You can dive the system with a regular SPG, old school as you'd like. You can go dive this, with a 1950s submersible pressure gauge, and it's all good. However, we figured a long time ago, when the system was just invented, we figured out that there's a bit of a fallacy of reporting to divers their pressure. Pressure is not a good measurement of how much air you have, because it changes with temperature. Just think about how many times you fill a tank, it shows you one pressure, it cools off, it shows you another pressure, you jump in the water, it shows you a third pressure. Pressure is not a real good measurement. I know, we've been using it for many years. It's the standard. Many things are standard. Many things were standards in the past. One thing that we did is to actually show divers the percentage of air remaining. We take everything into account. See, once we go and we invent something new, we might as well wholesale introduce with it a few things that will come with. The percentage of air remaining is something that comes with those computers because it makes more sense to a diver. To imagine a new diver. When you speak in pressure and things changes and you just tell him, oh, don't worry about it. The tank was in the sun, so it's a little higher. Things don't compute. With us, what we did is we just convert it. We take temperature into account. We take other things into account. And what we say is once the tank is full, it's at 100%. From then on, it starts to, once you breathe from it, it goes down in percentage. So a dive master can say, I want you to let me know when you're at 66% or 50%. And it's an easy way to look at the air and understand, just like a butter, how much air you have left in percentage. So Ed, thank you for mentioning this, but I just wanted everybody to know what we mean, what you mean when you're saying percentage. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, and just to add to that, as a dive master and instructor, if you're looking for everyone's 50% air, you know it relates to their consumption rate as well. So I don't know if you mentioned that, Aviad, that the percentage rate's tied into your consumption rate, and that's going to be different for every diver. So if you tell everybody to turn around at 800 PSI, that's very different for every diver versus telling them, let's turn around at 40% of your capacity or 33% of your capacity, however you're going to gauge that. So you're asking everybody what their remaining rate is, and they can all tell you the same number. And you don't have to kind of go, well, that diver breathes a lot more than that diver. So when they tell me they're down to 400 PSI, I'm worried. Or they tell me they're 400 PSI and they have another 15 minutes. So it varies per diver. I was going to say, we have a question about the cost of becoming a RAD diver. So does somebody want to take on what it takes to become a RAD diver?
I would say it changes by location, but I mean, the best way to answer this is look at the website of the Avelo Dive Center website, because it changes. Some of them offer it as a 1-day program or a 2-day program. So the best way to look at it, we Avelo are not, we don't teach, we work with the dive shops. So that's a question for the individual dive center. Where are you located?
See if they type where they're located to see if they can find their nearest Avelo Dive Center. One thing Aviad mentioned is that the specialty course itself is a 2-dive course, but we do think you really get benefit from a second day of diving to appreciate the system and what it can do for you outside of completing skills in the class. This is a diver in Florida.
Yeah, Ross, Ollie.
All Ross.
Wow. Wow. So we do it in a, we actually do offer the 1-day and the 2-day. If you're wanting to do it in a 1-day, it's going to be $495. That's going to include the tuition. That's going to include the materials. That's going to include the boat trips. It would be one afternoon. We would actually meet on the dock in the morning, build the unit, talk about the unit, play with the unit, do the quick review. And then after the dives, go somewhere and take a look at your dive profile. And then if you do the 2-day version, it's $650. And it's literally, it's the same thing times 2. So you're going to do 2 more dives, the boat trip, the gear, and then obviously on day 2, whether right now I'm the only instructor, whether it's me or whether it's one of my dive guides, the majority of my crew, we've got about 80 instructors. The majority of my crew will be trained up as Avelo dive guides. By the end of the summer, we're working on the first 20 in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then the next 20 after that. To be perfectly honest, Aviad actually warned me. He said, once your crew starts seeing this and watching you dive, they're going to want to do it and they're going to want to be first and they're going to want to do it. And I said, no, Avi, that's not going to, yeah, it did happen. So we'll be ready for you.
No one's ever competitive with how their breathing rate and their buoyancy is perfect on the system, are they?
Not at all, especially when you put 3 course directors in the same room.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got another question. Can I just ask it? Ross was saying that it's a very different feel when you're diving with the Avelo system. I haven't dived regular diving for quite a while, and I was going to go back and go over everything. But I'm just wondering whether I can just go ahead and do the Avelo and start from there instead.
Oh, don't put a BC back on your back. Don't do it. If you're gonna do a refresh, if you're gonna do a refresher anyway, they can put you in the pool. That's, as a matter of fact, we did some training in a pool recently, which was so cool because I have a 3-foot shelf and I put 4 divers completely neutrally buoyant in that 3 feet and just said swim around. Don't break the surface. And they were like koi in a pond. So yeah, don't even think about it. Go on the Avelo, get back in the water. And for those of you who do have joints, pains, things like that, we do a lot of adaptive diving down here, and have already found all kinds of sort of not different techniques, but modified techniques to work with adaptive divers. So yeah, it's an amazing system. There's so many different utilizations.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. We are just about out of time. If we have one last question, we can take that. Otherwise, I'm real grateful to everybody who has signed on to chat diving today and to have fun on the beginning of our weekend. Maybe start dreaming about your next dives. Are there any other questions? Oh, Ed is asking when it's going on sale. You already addressed that.
Yes, yeah, we addressed this this summer. For sure, this summer, it's already circulating to the ADCs. Give us, summer is not far, so a couple months. But yes, it's coming.
Well,
and it's not, by the way, it's going to go on sale and it's going to go on long-term rental. So that will be explained by the Avelo Dive Centers. And so we're introducing even a few more concepts with that. So stay tuned.
Thank you all so very much. Well, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's Let's Talk Avelo. Yes, sir.
There's another question in there.
Oh, Aviad, he wants you to address pricing.
That will be announced by the Avelo Dive Center. So again, all the pricing and everything is coming in a couple of months, like anywhere between probably the next 8 weeks, I believe it will be announced.
You hear us talking a lot about coming through our Avelo Dive Center, speak to them about training. We believe that dive centers are the center of diving. And through them, you can get expertise and connect with the product and these experiences and the dive community. Aviad?
Yep, I'm in agreement. Yes.
I didn't mean to cut you off. So yeah, we appreciate everybody signing in. As I was starting to say, this is our first of a 4 series in Let's Talk Avelo. We will be joining in again on June 21st if you're interested in hearing from our Avelo Dive Centers directly. And we'll stay tuned for more updates on our events page on diveavelo.com, on our Facebook page. And feel free to reach out to us and ask us questions either through our social media channels, through the website itself, and look up the Avelo Tour at diveavelo.com so you can get in touch with participating dive shops in Florida. Thank you all so very much for your time. Happy diving.